Sarah Kim sat in her car outside a burger restaurant on 5th Street. The afternoon sun made the inside of her car warm, but she kept the windows up. She needed privacy for her work. On the passenger seat, a small camera pointed at the restaurant's back door. A laptop showed live footage from another camera she had placed across the street last week. This was her life now, sitting in cars, watching people, writing notes. Sarah was a detective, and she had been following a group of criminals for 3 months. They used this burger restaurant to clean their dirty money. At least that was what her boss thought. Sarah was not so sure anymore, but she kept watching anyway. Her stomach made a noise. She looked at her watch. 2 in the afternoon. She had not eaten since breakfast. Sarah pulled out her phone and opened a food delivery app. She had used this app many times during her long surveillance shifts. It was easier than leaving her spot to buy food. She scrolled through the menu of the same burger restaurant she was watching. It seemed funny to order from a place she was investigating, but their food was actually good. Sarah selected a double cheeseburger, a large order of fries, and a chocolate shake. She made sure to click the option for extra fries. She loved fries, and after sitting in a hot car for 6 hours, she felt she deserved them. The app showed her order total, $15.75. She added a $3 tip and confirmed the purchase. The screen said her food would arrive in 30 minutes. Sarah put her phone down and went back to watching the restaurant's back door. Nothing interesting happened while she waited. A cook came out to smoke a cigarette. A delivery driver picked up 3 bags of food. A manager argued with someone on the phone. Sarah wrote down the times in her notebook, but none of it seemed important to her case. Her phone buzzed. The delivery driver was 5 minutes away. Sarah glanced at the app and saw the driver's name was Marcus Chen. She had seen that name before. Marcus had delivered food to her several times in the past few weeks. He always arrived quickly, and the food was usually still hot. A few minutes later, a silver Honda pulled up next to her car. Marcus got out holding a paper bag. He was a thin man in his late 20s with messy black hair. He wore the standard delivery uniform, a red shirt with the app's logo. He knocked on her window. Sarah rolled down the window halfway. Marcus handed her the bag with a quick smile. "Double cheeseburger meal," he said. "Have a good day." "Thanks," Sarah said. She took the bag and Marcus walked back to his car. Sarah waited until Marcus drove away before opening the bag. The smell of grilled meat and fried food filled her car. She pulled out the wrapped burger first and set it on the passenger seat. Then she reached into the bag for her fries. Her hand touched the bottom of the empty bag. Sarah frowned. She looked inside the bag more carefully. No fries. She checked the receipt stapled to the outside. It clearly listed 1 large fries and 1 extra large fries. She had paid for 2 orders of fries. The bag only contained her burger and shake. She felt annoyed but not surprised. This had happened before. In fact, it had happened 3 times in the past 2 weeks. Each time she had been missing something from her order. Once it was fries. Another time it was chicken nuggets. The 3rd time, her drink was wrong. Sarah pulled out her phone and opened her order history on the app. She scrolled back through her recent deliveries. She had ordered from this restaurant chain 7 times in the last 3 weeks. 4 of those orders had problems. Missing items. Wrong items. 1 order arrived with the bag already opened. She looked at the driver names for each order. Her eyes stopped moving when she saw the pattern. Marcus Chen, Marcus Chen, Marcus Chen, Marcus Chen. Every single problem order had been delivered by Marcus. The 3 orders that arrived correctly had different driver names, Lee, Rodriguez, and Williams. But every order with Marcus had something wrong with it. Sarah set down her phone and stared at the burger restaurant across the street. Her detective brain started working. This was not bad luck. This was not an accident. This was a pattern. And Sarah had spent 10 years as a detective learning that patterns always meant something. She picked up her notebook and flipped to a new page. At the top, she wrote Marcus Chen, delivery driver, and underlined it twice. Below that, she started listing every order she could remember. Order 1, missing large fries. Cost $4.50. Order 2, missing 6-piece nuggets. Cost $5.25. Order 3, wrong drink, got diet instead of regular. Cost difference 0 but annoying. Order 4, today, missing 2 orders of fries. Cost $9. Sarah did the math. Just from her orders alone, Marcus had either stolen or messed up nearly $20 worth of food. That might not sound like much, but it made her think. How many other customers had this happened to? If Marcus did this to 5 customers per day, 5 days a week, that was a lot of money. Maybe $100 per week. Over $400 per month. She thought about reporting it to the app company, but she knew what would happen. They would give her a refund and apologize. Maybe they would send Marcus a warning message. But would they actually fire him? Probably not. Apps like this always needed drivers. One customer complaining about missing fries would not change anything. Sarah unwrapped her burger and took a bite. It was cold now, but she was too hungry to care. As she ate, she kept thinking about Marcus. Why would a delivery driver risk his job to steal fries? It did not make sense. Fries were cheap. The app would refund customers, which meant Marcus was not really stealing from customers. He was stealing from the restaurant or the app company, unless he was smarter than that. Sarah opened the app again and looked at how refunds worked. When a customer reported missing items, the app gave them credit for next time. The restaurant did not lose money because the app covered it. The app company paid for driver mistakes as part of their business cost, so Marcus could steal items, customers would get refunds, and nobody really got hurt enough to investigate. It was actually a clever system to exploit, small enough that each incident meant nothing, large enough that it added up to real money over time, hidden enough that no single person saw the full pattern. But Sarah saw patterns. It was her job. And right now, sitting in her hot car with a cold burger and no fries, she decided that Marcus Chen had picked the wrong customer to steal from. She pulled out her personal phone, not her work phone, and took a picture of the receipt. Then she photographed the empty bag. She opened a new note on her phone and started a file called Delivery Investigation. She typed in the date, time, order number, amount paid, and items missing. Sarah had investigated drug dealers, murderers, and organized crime bosses. She had gone undercover in dangerous situations. She had testified in court dozens of times. And now she was going to use all of that training and experience to take down a delivery driver who stole fries. Some people might think it was a waste of her skills. Some might say she should just get a refund and move on. But Sarah believed in something simple. Nobody should get away with stealing, no matter how small the theft. If people could take little things without consequences, they would eventually take bigger things. Besides, she had 3 months of boring surveillance ahead of her. She needed a project to stay sharp. And Marcus Chen had just become her new project. Sarah smiled as she finished her burger. She opened her laptop and created a new spreadsheet. Column headers, date, time, order number, items ordered, items received, driver name, cost of missing items. She filled in the 4 orders she could remember clearly. Tomorrow, she would order again. And the next day, and the day after that, she would build a case against Marcus Chen with the same care she used on her real cases. She would document everything, gather evidence, find other victims, build an airtight case. And then she would make sure Marcus faced real consequences for thinking he was smarter than his customers. Sarah started her car engine. Time to go home and plan her investigation. She had work to do. The fries would be revenged. Sarah spent her evening at home building a plan. She sat at her kitchen table with her laptop, a notebook, and 3 different phones spread out in front of her. One phone was for her police work. The other 2 were personal phones she used for undercover operations. Tonight, they would help her catch a French fry thief. She opened the delivery app on her main phone and studied how it worked. The app showed nearby restaurants, menus, prices, and delivery times. Customers could track their driver on a map. They could rate drivers and leave reviews. Sarah clicked on the help section and read about the refund policy. The policy was simple. If something was wrong with an order, customers could report it through the app. They would get credit back to their account within 24 hours. The app promised to work with restaurant partners to ensure quality. Sarah noticed it said nothing about investigating drivers or tracking patterns of problems. She switched to her computer and searched for reviews of Marcus Chen. The app let customers leave reviews for drivers, but most people did not bother. Sarah had to scroll through hundreds of generic 5-star ratings. Fast delivery. Food was hot. Nice driver. Then she found them. The bad reviews. They were scattered among the good ones, easy to miss if you were not looking carefully. Missing items again. 3rd time with this driver. Fries were gone. Burger looked like someone took a bite. Always something wrong when Marcus delivers. Get a different driver. Food was cold and half-eaten. Reported to app. Sarah counted 12 bad reviews for Marcus over the past 6 months. 12 people angry enough to leave negative feedback. She knew from her police work that for every person who complained, 10 more stayed silent. That meant Marcus had probably stolen from at least 120 customers. She did more math in her notebook. If Marcus stole an average of $5 per order, and he did this to 10 customers per week, that was $50 weekly, $200 monthly, over $2,000 per year. Just from stealing food from people who thought they were getting a simple meal delivered, Sarah felt her anger grow. This was not about fries anymore. This was about someone who thought he was smart enough to beat the system, someone who thought his victims were too lazy or too busy to fight back. The next morning, Sarah went back to her surveillance spot outside the burger restaurant. She had her regular work to do, but she could multitask. At 11:30, right before the lunch rush, she opened the delivery app on her second phone. She had created a new account using a different name and email address. The account was registered to her friend's apartment address 3 blocks away. Sarah ordered a large meal. 2 burgers, large fries, onion rings, nuggets, 2 drinks, and a pie. The total came to $38 before tip. She wanted a big order because she had a theory. Big orders were easier to steal from. If one item went missing from a 10-item order, customers might not notice right away. But if the only item you ordered was missing, you would definitely notice. She watched the app screen. It searched for a driver. A name popped up, Rodriguez. Sarah felt disappointed. She needed Marcus for her test. She canceled the order. The app charged her a small fee, but she did not care. She waited 15 minutes and tried again. This time the app assigned her order to Williams. Cancel. Another 15 minutes. Lee. Cancel. On her 4th try. 45 minutes after she started, the app assigned Marcus Chen to her order. Sarah felt excited. She quickly confirmed everything and added a $4 tip. She wanted Marcus to think this was a good customer, someone worth keeping happy, someone who would not complain about small problems. The app said Marcus would pick up her order in 10 minutes and deliver it in 30. Sarah watched through her camera as Marcus's silver Honda pulled into the restaurant parking lot. He went inside and came back out 5 minutes later carrying a large paper bag. She zoomed in with her camera. The bag looked full and heavy. Marcus put the bag in his front seat, not in the insulated delivery bag in his trunk. Interesting. Sarah started her car and followed him from a distance. This was easy. She had followed criminals for years without being noticed. Following a delivery driver was nothing. Marcus drove toward the delivery address. Sarah expected him to go straight there. Instead, he pulled into a parking lot behind a closed store. Sarah parked far away where she could see his car, but he could not see hers. She pulled out her camera with the long lens, the same one she used for surveillance photos in court cases. Through the lens, she watched Marcus reach for the paper bag. He opened it and looked inside. Then he reached in and pulled something out. Sarah clicked her camera, taking rapid photos. Marcus was eating. He pulled out another item. More photos. He ate for about 3 minutes, then closed the bag and drove away. Sarah followed him to the delivery address. Marcus got out, walked to the apartment building, and took a photo of himself leaving the bag at the door. Then he drove away. Sarah waited 5 minutes. She called her friend Minjun, who lived in that building. Minjun, I need a favor. There is a food delivery bag outside your building. Can you get it and tell me what is inside? Sure, give me a minute, Minjun said. Sarah heard movement through the phone. A door opening. Rustling sounds. Okay, I got it. There are 2 burgers, 1 container of onion rings, 1 container of nuggets, 2 drinks, and a pie. That is it. No fries? Sarah asked. No fries. Wait, the nugget container only has 4 pieces. The receipt says 6 piece. Thank you, Minjun. Keep the food. I will explain later. Sarah hung up and smiled. She had him. She had photos of Marcus eating in his car during a delivery. She had proof that items were missing. She had the receipt showing what was ordered versus what was delivered. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah ran the same test 5 more times. She used different phone numbers, different accounts, different delivery addresses from friends and family members. She varied the restaurants within the same chain. Each time she made sure the app assigned Marcus as the driver. Each time she followed him. And each time, Marcus stopped somewhere to steal food before delivering. Sarah documented everything. Photos of Marcus eating in his car. Videos of him opening bags and removing items. Screenshots of order confirmations. Photos of the incomplete deliveries. Receipts showing what was paid for versus what arrived. timestamps for everything. She created a detailed spreadsheet. 15 orders delivered by Marcus. 13 of them had missing items. The 2 complete orders were small, just a single burger each. Marcus only stole from big orders. He was being strategic about it. The total value of stolen items was $68. That was just from her test orders over 2 weeks. Sarah went back to her research and found more victims online. She searched social media for complaints about the delivery app and the restaurant chain. She found a parent forum where people discussed the best food delivery services. In one thread, 7 different parents complained about the same thing. Missing items from orders, always from the same restaurant chain. Several mentioned Marcus by name. Sarah sent private messages to these people. She introduced herself as another victim who was tired of being stolen from. She did not mention she was a detective. She just said she was gathering evidence to file a formal complaint with the company. 5 of them responded and agreed to share their experiences. One woman named Jennifer had kept records of every problem order. 8 orders in 4 months, all delivered by Marcus, all missing something. She had contacted customer service each time, but nothing changed. Another person named Robert had actually confronted Marcus once. He was waiting outside when Marcus arrived and checked the bag immediately. The fries were missing. When Robert asked about them, Marcus acted confused and said the restaurant must have forgotten them. Robert called the restaurant. They said they definitely packed fries. Marcus shrugged and drove away. Robert got a refund, but Marcus kept his job. Sarah added all of this information to her case file. She now had evidence from 8 different victims over 6 months. She had photos, videos, and documentation of systematic theft. She had proof that customers complained, but the company did nothing. On a Thursday evening, Sarah ordered one more test delivery. This time she used her real name and her real address. She wanted Marcus to deliver to her home so she could control the situation completely. She ordered a large meal at 6 in the evening. Burger, fries, chicken strips, drinks, and dessert. The app assigned Marcus. Perfect. Sarah set up 2 cameras. One was her doorbell camera that recorded everyone who came to her front door. The second was a small camera she placed in her window pointing at the street. She wanted to catch Marcus from every angle. The app showed Marcus picking up the order. Sarah watched on her phone as his car moved through the streets toward her house. She saw him pull up outside. She watched through her window as he reached into the food bag while sitting in his car. His hand came out holding her container of fries. He ate several fries, then put the container in a bag he kept in his passenger seat. He closed up the delivery bag and got out. Both cameras recorded everything. Marcus walked to her door. He took the required photo of the bag at the door. Then he left. Sarah waited until his car turned the corner. Then she opened her door and picked up the bag. She brought it inside and immediately photographed the contents. Sarah woke up Friday morning with a clear plan. Today she would launch her operation against Marcus Chen. She made coffee and sat at her kitchen table with her laptop. The case file she had built over the past 2 weeks was complete and organized. Now it was time to use it. She started with the delivery app company. Their customer service was available 24 hours, but Sarah did not want to talk to a regular support agent. She needed to reach someone with actual power to make decisions, someone who would take her seriously. Sarah searched the app company's website and found their corporate structure. The company was called Quick Eats and they had a customer safety department. That was what she needed. She found an email address for safety concerns and started writing. Her email was not emotional or angry. Sarah had learned from years of police work that facts worked better than feelings. She wrote like she was filing a police report. Clear, direct, detailed. Dear Quick Eats Safety Department, I am writing to report systematic theft by one of your drivers. Over the past 6 months, driver Marcus Chen has been stealing food from customer orders. I have documented evidence of this theft, including video recordings, photographs, order receipts, and statements from multiple victims. Sarah attached everything to the email. The spreadsheet showing 15 orders with missing items. Photos of Marcus eating stolen food in his car. Video clips from her doorbell camera and surveillance footage. Screenshots of the other victims' complaints. The total came to 23 attachments. She ended the email with a clear demand. I request that Quick Eats investigate this matter immediately and take appropriate action. If this issue is not resolved within 5 business days, I will share this information with local news media and consumer protection agencies. Sarah read the email 3 times to make sure it was perfect. Then she hit send. Step 1 complete. Next, she wrote to the burger restaurant chain. They were called Big Bite Burgers and they had dozens of locations across the city. Sarah found the email for their regional manager and wrote a similar message. She explained that a delivery driver had been stealing food from orders picked up at Big Bite locations. This made Big Bite look bad and cost them money in refunds. She attached the same evidence but focused on how it affected the restaurant. Your customers are complaining about missing items. Your restaurant is being blamed for mistakes you did not make. Your reputation is suffering because of a delivery driver who steals food after picking it up from your locations. Sarah suggested they review their security camera footage from times when Marcus picked up orders. She provided specific dates and times. She knew restaurants kept security footage for at least 30 days. If they checked, they would see Marcus leaving with full bags and customers receiving incomplete orders. Email sent to Big Bite Burgers. Step 2 complete. Now came the part Sarah was most excited about. Social media. Sarah created a new account on a popular social media platform. She did not use her real name or photo. She wanted this to be about the facts, not about her. She called the account Food Delivery Truth and wrote in the description, "Exposing theft and fraud in the food delivery industry." She spent an hour writing her first post. It needed to be interesting enough that people would read it and share it, but it also needed to be careful. Sarah could not reveal information that would identify the other victims. She could not make claims she could not prove. Everything had to be factual and verifiable. Thread: How a delivery driver stole from hundreds of customers and got away with it for months. This is a story about systematic theft, corporate indifference, and why you should always check your delivery orders. Sarah broke the story into 15 connected posts. Each post was short and easy to read. She included some of her evidence but protected people's privacy. She blurred out addresses and names except for Marcus. His actions were documented with video evidence, so there was no question about what he did. Post 1 explained how she first noticed her fries were missing. Post 2 showed the pattern of missing items. Post 3 revealed that Marcus was the common factor. Posts 4 through 8 detailed her investigation with photos and videos that proved theft. Posts 9 through 12 shared stories from other victims who gave her permission. Posts 13 and 14 showed how much money Marcus had stolen and how the company ignored complaints. Post 15 ended with a call to action. Companies like Quick Eats need to do better. They need to track patterns of missing items. They need to investigate drivers with multiple complaints. They need to protect customers instead of making refunds easier than solving problems. Share this thread if you have ever had missing items from a delivery order. Let's make these companies accountable. Sarah posted the thread at 9 in the morning, right when most people checked their phones during work breaks. Then she tagged Quick Eats, Big Bite Burgers, and several consumer protection accounts that had large followings. She closed her laptop and got ready for her regular police work. She had a surveillance shift starting at noon. As she drove to her assignment, she checked her phone at a red light. Her thread already had 47 shares and 163 likes. People were commenting with their own stories of delivery problems. By the time Sarah parked outside the restaurant for her surveillance work, her thread had been shared 200 times. The comments kept coming. People were angry. They shared screenshots of their own incomplete orders. They tagged friends who had similar experiences. Some people said they had stopped using Quick Eats because of missing items. Sarah put her phone away and focused on her actual job. She watched the restaurant's back door through her camera. She took notes on who came and went. This was the money laundering case she was supposed to be investigating. But today it was hard to focus. She kept wanting to check her phone to see what was happening with her Marcus Chen posts. At 2 in the afternoon, her phone rang. Unknown number. Sarah answered. "Hello, is this Sarah Kim?" A woman's voice. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Patricia Wong. I am the Regional Customer Safety Director for Quick Eats. I received your email this morning and I want to discuss this matter with you immediately." Sarah felt a rush of satisfaction. They were taking her seriously. "Thank you for calling. Did you review the evidence I sent?" "Yes, I did. All of it. Ms. Kim, I have to say this is the most thorough complaint documentation I have ever seen. You must have spent significant time on this investigation." "I did. I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed to take action." "We definitely do. I want you to know that we have already suspended Marcus Chen from the platform, pending a full investigation. We are reviewing all of his deliveries from the past year. We are also contacting every customer who rated him negatively to offer compensation. That is good to hear, Sarah said. But I need to know this won't happen again with other drivers. What changes will you make to prevent this? Patricia paused. Can I ask what you do for work, Ms. Kim? This investigation was very professional, Sarah smiled. I work in investigation and documentation. I notice patterns, I can see that. To answer your question, we are implementing several changes. First, we are adding a new review system that flags drivers who have multiple complaints about missing items. Second, we are requiring restaurants to use tamper-proof seals on all delivery bags. Third, we are changing our driver compensation to remove any incentive for theft. What do you mean by removing incentive? Currently, when customers report missing items, the cost comes from our corporate budget. Drivers face no penalty. We are changing the system so drivers who have proven patterns of missing items will be financially responsible. If someone has 5 verified complaints in a month, we deduct the value from their earnings. Sarah thought about this. That seems fair. What about the victims? Will they be compensated beyond standard refunds? Yes. We are issuing formal apologies and additional credits to everyone affected by Marcus Chen. And Ms. Kim, we would like to offer you a full year of free delivery service as thanks for bringing this to our attention. I appreciate that, Sarah said. But I would rather you donate that money to a food bank. People who steal from delivery orders probably steal from other vulnerable people too. Patricia sounded impressed. That is very generous. We will do that. Is there anything else you need from us? Just one thing. I want you to share what you learned from this case with other delivery companies. This problem is bigger than one driver or one company. The whole industry needs better systems, I agree. I will bring this up at our next industry association meeting. Thank you again, Ms. Kim. You have helped us fix a serious problem. After the call ended, Sarah checked her social media post. It now had over 1,000 shares. Several local news accounts had commented, asking if they could interview her about delivery service theft. A consumer protection lawyer offered free legal help to any victims who wanted to pursue claims. The comments were the best part. Hundreds of people sharing their own experiences, but mixed in with the angry comments were some different ones. People thanking her for speaking up. People saying they felt validated because they thought they were crazy for caring about missing fries. People saying they had stopped using delivery services because of theft, but might try again if companies were actually fixing the problem. At 4 p.m, Sarah's phone rang again. This time it was Jason Miller, the regional manager for Big Bite Burgers. Ms. Kim, I just reviewed our security footage based on the dates you provided. I want to apologize. You were absolutely right. We watched Marcus Chen pick up orders from 3 different locations. At 2 locations, our staff gave him sealed bags. At one location, we could see on camera that he opened bags in his car and removed items. I appreciate you checking, Sarah said. This is unacceptable. Not just what Marcus did, but also that we did not catch it. We had no system for tracking delivery driver theft. We just assumed missing items were our fault and kept issuing refunds. So what will you do differently? Starting Monday, every delivery order will be sealed with tape that shows if the bag was opened. We are also going to start tracking which drivers pick up orders that later get reported as incomplete. If we see patterns, we will ban those drivers from our locations and report them to the delivery companies. That sounds like a good plan. Ms. Kim, can I ask why you put so much effort into this? Most people would just get a refund and move on. Sarah thought about how to answer. She could not tell him she was a police detective. That would make this whole thing complicated, but she could tell him the truth about why it mattered. I don't like thieves, she said simply. It doesn't matter if they steal $5 or $5,000. Stealing is wrong. And I especially don't like thieves who target regular people just trying to get dinner delivered. Those customers work hard for their money. They deserve to get what they paid for. I couldn't agree more. Thank you for holding us accountable. Sarah spent the rest of her shift monitoring her surveillance target and checking her phone. By 6 p.m, her social media thread had over 3,000 shares. A local television news reporter sent her a private message asking for an interview. 2 other delivery companies posted public statements saying they were reviewing their anti-theft policies. The story was spreading beyond what Sarah expected. Food delivery blogs picked it up. Consumer advice websites wrote articles about how to protect yourself from delivery theft. Other people started posting their own evidence of driver theft, creating a wave of complaints that companies could not ignore. Sarah drove home feeling satisfied. She had used her detective skills to solve a problem that affected regular people. No guns, no badges, no arrest warrants, Just careful observation, thorough documentation, and strategic action. When she got home, she found an email from Patricia at Quick Eats. The company had completed their review of Marcus Chen. They found evidence that he had stolen from orders 473 times over 18 months. The total value was estimated at over $40,000. They had terminated his account and banned him from ever working for Quick Eats again. They were also referring his case to law enforcement for possible criminal charges. Sarah made dinner and ate it while reading through the hundreds of comments on her social media post. People were grateful someone had finally done something about a problem everyone experienced, but nobody addressed. They were sharing tips for checking deliveries. They were demanding better from companies. One comment stood out. It was from someone named Chen77. "This is Marcus. You destroyed my life over some fries. Was it worth it?" Sarah typed a response. "I didn't destroy your life. You destroyed your own reputation by stealing from hundreds of people. Actions have consequences. You should have thought about that before you decided you were smarter than your customers." She posted the reply and closed her laptop. Tomorrow she would deal with the news interview requests. Tonight she would rest knowing that one more thief was facing justice, even if it all started with missing fries. Saturday morning arrived with Sarah's phone buzzing constantly. Her social media post about Marcus Chen had gone viral overnight. When she checked her phone, the thread had been shared over 15,000 times. Major news websites were writing articles about delivery driver theft. Consumer protection organizations were calling for industry reforms. Sarah made coffee and sat at her kitchen table to sort through messages. 3 local television stations wanted interviews. 2 newspapers requested comments. A national morning show producer asked if she would appear on Monday. Several lawyers offered to represent victims in class action lawsuits against Quick Eats, but the messages that interested Sarah most were from other victims. Her inbox was full of people sharing their own experiences with Marcus Chen. Each message added another piece to the puzzle of how he had operated for so long. A woman named Lisa Park wrote, "Marcus delivered to me 12 times. 9 of those orders had problems. I stopped using Quick Eats because of him. I thought I was unlucky, but now I see he was just a thief." A college student named David Cruz sent photos of his incomplete orders. "I'm on a tight budget. When my food was missing, that meant I didn't eat that night. I couldn't afford to order again." Marcus stole from someone who was already struggling. An elderly man named Robert Johnson wrote, "I have trouble leaving my house. Delivery services are how I get most of my meals. Marcus stole from my orders 6 times. I thought the restaurants were making mistakes. I never imagined the driver was eating my food." Sarah read every message. She responded to each one, thanking them for sharing their stories. She asked if they wanted to be part of a group complaint. Many said yes. By noon, Sarah had collected statements from 47 different victims across the city. She organized everything into a new document. Names, dates, order details, amounts stolen. The pattern was clear. Marcus targeted people who seemed vulnerable. Elderly people who could not easily go out to confront him. Students who were too busy to file complaints. Single parents ordering dinner for their families. People in poor neighborhoods who were less likely to make a fuss over a few dollars. This made Sarah angrier than anything else. Marcus was not just stealing food. He was targeting people who could least afford to lose money. People who probably skipped other things to have enough for a delivered meal. At 2 in the afternoon, Sarah received a phone call from Detective Raymond Lee. He worked in the fraud division of the police department. Sarah knew him from training seminars. "Sarah, I saw your social media post about the delivery driver. Impressive investigation. Did you do all that on your own time?" "Yes, it was personal. He stole my fries one too many times." Raymond laughed. "Well, your personal investigation just became a police matter. Quick Eats filed a formal complaint this morning. They want to press charges against Marcus Chen for fraud and theft. They sent us all the evidence you collected, plus their own internal records. This is enough to prosecute." "Good," Sarah said. "What kind of charges?" "Based on the amount involved, we're looking at felony theft. Over $40,000 in stolen goods and fraudulent refunds. The district attorney is interested because this affects consumer confidence in the delivery industry. They want to make an example of this case. Do you need anything from me?" "Just your statement and the original evidence. Can you come to the station Monday morning?" "I'll be there. After hanging up, Sarah felt satisfaction mixed with concern. She wanted Marcus to face consequences, but she had not expected this to become a major criminal case. Felony theft could mean years in prison. She thought about whether that was too harsh for stealing food. Then she thought about David Cruz, the college student who went hungry because Marcus stole his dinner. She thought about Robert Johnson, the elderly man who depended on deliveries. She thought about all the parents who ordered food for their children and received incomplete meals. No, it was not too harsh. Marcus had made a choice to steal from hundreds of people over 18 months. He had not stolen once in desperation. He had turned theft into a business model. That deserved serious consequences. Sarah decided to accept the television interview request. If she was going to be part of this story, she might as well use the attention to push for real changes. She called back the local news station and agreed to meet their reporter on Sunday afternoon. The reporter's name was Christina Hayes. She arrived at a coffee shop where Sarah had agreed to meet. Christina was in her early 30s, professional but friendly. She set up a small camera and a microphone while they talked. "Thank you for agreeing to this interview," Christina said. "Your story is everywhere right now. People are calling you a hero for standing up to delivery driver theft." "I'm not a hero," Sarah said. "I just wanted my fries," Christina smiled. "Can you walk me through how this started?" Sarah explained everything. The missing items, the pattern she noticed, the investigation she conducted, the evidence she gathered. Christina took notes and asked good questions. She clearly understood this was bigger than one person's complaint. "Why do you think Marcus was able to do this for so long?" Christina asked. "Because the system made it easy. When customers complained, companies just issued refunds. Nobody tracked patterns. Nobody investigated repeated problems with the same driver. Marcus figured out he could steal a little from many people, and it would never add up to anyone noticing. Until you noticed." "Until I noticed. But I have training that helps me see patterns. Most regular customers would not connect dots across dozens of orders. The companies should have caught this. They have all the data. They just were not looking at it the right way. What do you want to see change?" Sarah had thought about this question. 3 things. First, companies need better systems to track driver behavior. If a driver has 10 complaints in a month, that is a pattern worth investigating. Second, restaurants need tamper-proof packaging. Sealed bags or tape that shows if someone opened the order. Third, customers need to know they can report problems without feeling like they are making a fuss over small amounts. Every theft matters, no matter how small. Christina nodded. "I heard Marcus Chen commented on your social media post. He said you destroyed his life. What do you say to that?" "I say he destroyed his own life by choosing to steal from hundreds of people. I just documented what he did. The consequences come from his actions, not from my investigation. If you don't want to face punishment for theft, don't steal. It's that simple. Some people online are saying you went too far. That missing fries is not worth ruining someone's career and possibly sending them to jail." Sarah looked directly at the camera. This was not about fries. This was about a person who targeted vulnerable people and stole from them systematically. He stole from elderly people, from students, from struggling families. He stole over $40,000. That's not a small mistake. That's criminal behavior. Should he get away with it just because each individual victim only lost a few dollars? Christina finished the interview after 30 minutes. She promised the story would air on the Sunday evening news. Sarah went home and tried to return to her normal weekend routine, but her phone kept buzzing with messages and calls. Sunday evening, Sarah watched herself on television. Christina had edited the interview well, focusing on the facts and the systemic problems. The news station had also interviewed other victims, including Robert Johnson and Lisa Park. Seeing their faces as they described how the thefts affected them made the story real in a way that numbers on a spreadsheet could not. The segment ended with Christina reporting that Marcus Chen had been charged with felony theft and fraud. He faced up to 5 years in prison if convicted. Quick Eats and Big Bite Burgers announced new security measures. Other delivery companies in the city promised to review their anti-theft policies. Sarah's phone exploded with messages after the broadcast. Friends and family who had not known about her investigation sent congratulations. Colleagues from work expressed amazement that she had conducted such a thorough case on her own time. Her boss called to say he was impressed, but also to remind her not to let personal projects interfere with her actual police work. Monday morning, Sarah went to the police station to give her formal statement to Detective Lee. She brought printed copies of all her evidence, organized in 3 binders. Photos, videos, receipts, victim statements, correspondence with companies, everything documented and labeled. Raymond flipped through the binders with an expression of amazement. "Sarah, this is better than most of our official investigations. You should teach a class on evidence documentation. I just did what I was trained to do. Observe, document, prove. Well, you've made the prosecutor's job very easy. This case is airtight. Marcus's lawyer is already talking about a plea deal. There's no way to argue against video evidence of him stealing." Sarah signed her statement and left the police station. As she walked to her car, she thought about the past 3 weeks. What had started as annoyance over missing fries had turned into a full criminal investigation. She had exposed a systematic fraud that affected hundreds of people. She had pushed companies to change their policies. She had given victims a voice and shown them that complaints matter. That afternoon, Sarah received an email from Patricia Wong at Quick Eats. The company wanted to hire her as a consultant to help design better anti-theft systems. They would pay $5,000 for a detailed report on how delivery companies could prevent driver theft. Sarah almost deleted the email. She had a full-time job. She did not need consulting work. But then she thought about all the victims who had reached out to her, people who had been stolen from and thought nobody cared. People who felt powerless against large companies. If she could help design systems that prevented future thefts, that would help more people than just catching one thief. It would be worth her time. She replied to Patricia accepting the offer, but she added a condition. Quick Eats had to implement whatever recommendations she made within 3 months. No accepting the report and then forgetting about it. Real changes or she would go public about their failure to act. Patricia agreed immediately. Over the next week, Sarah worked on her report. She interviewed drivers to understand how they operated. She talked to restaurant workers about their packaging procedures. She studied data from Quick Eats about complaint patterns. She researched what other industries did to prevent theft in delivery systems. Her final report was 40 pages long. It included specific recommendations for tracking driver behavior, improving package security, changing compensation structures to remove theft incentives, and creating better customer reporting systems. Each recommendation came with implementation steps and cost estimates. Sarah sent the report to Patricia on a Friday afternoon. By Monday morning, Quick Eats announced they were implementing all of her suggestions. They published parts of her report on their company blog, giving her credit. Other delivery companies reached out asking for copies of the report. Sarah made it available for free to any company that wanted to improve their systems. 2 weeks after Sarah filed her police statement, Marcus Chen accepted a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to felony theft and fraud. The judge sentenced him to 18 months in prison with 3 years of probation afterward. He also had to pay back the $40,000 he stole, though everyone knew he probably could not afford that amount. At the sentencing hearing, the judge made a statement that several news outlets reported. This case shows that technology companies must do more to protect consumers. Fraud is still fraud even when it happens through an app, and theft is still theft even when it's just someone's dinner. Mr. Chen targeted vulnerable people and showed no remorse until he was caught. The sentence reflects the seriousness of his crimes. Sarah did not attend the hearing. She had done her part. The justice system would handle the rest. She went back to her regular police work. The money laundering case she had been investigating for months finally broke open. Her surveillance and evidence led to 5 arrests. Her boss praised her work and hinted at a promotion. But Sarah noticed something had changed in how she approached investigations. She paid more attention to patterns in small crimes. She wondered how many other situations involved systematic theft that nobody noticed, because the individual amounts seemed too small to matter. One evening, Sarah ordered food delivery from a different company, using her real name and address. When the food arrived complete with all items properly sealed, she smiled. The driver was a young woman named Maria Garcia. Sarah left a 5-star review and a generous tip. Small victories were still victories, and sometimes the smallest battles taught the most important lessons about justice. 3 months after Marcus Chen's sentencing, Sarah's life had returned to normal. She worked her cases at the police department. She did surveillance. She wrote reports. The money laundering investigation had resulted in successful prosecutions, and her boss was pleased with her work. But the food delivery story had not ended. It had grown into something bigger than Sarah ever expected. Her consulting report for Quick Eats became a model for the entire food delivery industry. 7 major companies contacted her asking for similar recommendations. Consumer protection agencies cited her work in new regulations they proposed. Universities invited her to speak about fraud detection in the gig economy. Sarah turned down most of these opportunities. She was a detective, not a public speaker, but she did accept one invitation that interested her. A consumer rights organization wanted her to train their volunteers on how to document systematic fraud. They worked with low-income communities where people often felt powerless against large companies. Sarah spent a Saturday teaching 20 volunteers in a community center. She showed them how to keep records, take photos, organize evidence, and present complaints effectively. She explained that companies pay attention when customers provide clear documentation. One person complaining might be ignored, but 10 people with organized evidence could not be dismissed. The volunteers asked good questions. They shared stories of their own experiences with delivery theft, price gouging, false advertising, and other problems. Sarah realized many of these people dealt with fraud regularly, but had no idea how to fight back effectively. At the end of the session, a woman in her 50s raised her hand. Her name was Grace Martinez. "I want to thank you for teaching us this," Grace said. "Last year, a contractor took $8,000 from me and never finished fixing my roof. I had no idea how to prove what happened. I just accepted that I lost my money. Now I know what I should have done. I can teach my friends and family so they don't make the same mistakes." Sarah felt something shift inside her. This was why her investigation of Marcus Chen mattered. Not because of the fries, not even because of the $40,000 he stole. It mattered because it showed ordinary people they could fight back against fraud and win. After the training session, Sarah drove home thinking about Grace Martinez and her unfinished roof. She thought about all the people who lost money to scams and fraud because they did not know how to gather evidence or where to report problems. She thought about how her skills as a detective could help more people than just the victims in her official cases. That evening, Sarah created a website. She called it Document and Report. It was a simple site with guides on how to document different types of consumer fraud, how to photograph evidence, how to organize complaints, how to escalate issues when companies ignored you, how to know when to report something to police versus consumer protection agencies. She made everything free and easy to understand. No legal language, no complicated forms, just clear instructions anyone could follow. Sarah did not advertise the website. She just posted the link on her social media account and let people find it. Within a week, the site had 5,000 visitors. Within a month, it had 50,000. People shared it in community forums, neighborhood groups, and consumer complaint websites. Messages poured in from people who used the guide successfully. A man recovered money from a dishonest mechanic by following Sarah's documentation process. A family got their deposit back from a bad landlord using her evidence checklist. A group of students shut down a fraudulent online tutoring service by collectively reporting it with organized proof. Sarah spent her evenings answering questions and updating the website with new guides. It became a second job she had not planned to have, but it felt important. One day at work, Sarah's boss called her into his office. Captain Michael Park was a serious man who rarely smiled. Sarah wondered if she was in trouble for spending too much time on her website project. "Detective Kim, I've been watching what you've been doing with this consumer fraud education work," Captain Park said. "Have you thought about making it an official part of your police duties?" Sarah was surprised. "What do you mean?" "The department has been discussing creating a new unit focused on consumer protection. Small-scale fraud that adds up to big problems. The kind of cases that usually fall through the cracks because each incident seems too minor to investigate. Your work with the delivery driver case showed us there's a real need for this kind of enforcement." "You want me to investigate missing fries full-time?" Sarah asked with a smile. Captain Park laughed. It was the first time Sarah had heard him laugh in the 2 years she had worked under him. "Not exactly. But there are patterns of fraud happening all over the city. Contractors who take deposits and disappear. Landlords who keep security deposits illegally. Businesses that advertise one price and charge another. Scams targeting elderly people or immigrants. Currently, nobody at the police department focuses on this specifically. Most victims don't even report it because they think we won't care about small amounts." Sarah understood immediately. "But small amounts from hundreds of victims add up to serious crime." "Exactly. And you've proven you're good at spotting patterns and building cases for this type of fraud. I want you to head this new unit. You would train other detectives, develop protocols, work with community organizations, maybe even expand that website of yours as an official police resource. Sarah thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. Yes, I want to do this. Good, you start next month. We're assigning 2 other detectives to work with you. I'll let you choose who you want. Sarah left the captain's office feeling excited. This was the kind of police work that actually helped regular people in their daily lives. Not every case needed to be about murder or major theft. Sometimes justice meant getting someone's deposit back or stopping a contractor from scamming elderly homeowners. Over the next few weeks, Sarah prepared to launch the new Consumer Protection Unit. She chose 2 detectives to work with her. Jennifer Choi, who was great at talking to victims and making them feel heard, and Marcus Thompson, who had excellent skills with data analysis and could spot patterns in complaint records. Yes, his first name was Marcus. Sarah found it ironic but did not mention it. The unit officially started on a Monday in June. Their first case came from a call Sarah received that morning. An elderly woman named Helen Park had hired a moving company to help her relocate to a smaller apartment. The movers had taken her furniture and belongings but never delivered them to her new address. They stopped answering her calls. She had paid them $3,000 up front. Sarah, Jennifer, and Marcus went to visit Helen. She lived in a modest apartment with borrowed furniture from her daughter. She showed them the contract she signed, the receipt for payment, and text messages from the moving company promising delivery dates that never happened. I thought because they had a website and business cards, they must be legitimate, Helen said quietly. I should have known better. You did nothing wrong, Jennifer said gently. They're the criminals, not you. Sarah photographed all the evidence. Marcus ran the moving company's information through databases and discovered they had scammed at least 12 other people in the past 6 months using the same method. Take payment, take belongings, disappear before delivery. The moving company kept changing their name and phone number, but they used the same bank account for payments. That was their mistake. Sarah traced the account and found the real identities of the people running the scam. She obtained a warrant and arrested 2 men who had been operating fake moving companies for 2 years. Helen got her furniture back. So did 8 of the other victims. The men were charged with theft and fraud affecting elderly victims, which carried enhanced penalties. They each received 4-year prison sentences. Helen sent Sarah a thank you card with a photo of her fully furnished apartment. "Thank you for caring about an old woman's furniture," she wrote. "Most people told me to just accept the loss and move on." Sarah put the card on her desk. It reminded her why this work mattered. Over the following months, the Consumer Protection Unit investigated dozens of cases. A contractor who took deposits from 15 homeowners and did no work. A car dealership that added hidden fees to contracts after customers signed. A landlord who kept security deposits by falsely claiming damage to apartments. A phone repair shop that sold people's personal data after accessing their devices. Each case was different, but they all shared common elements. Victims who thought their losses were too small to report. Criminals who counted on people not fighting back. Systems that made fraud easy and consequences rare. Sarah and her team changed that equation. They showed victims their complaints mattered. They tracked patterns that revealed systematic fraud. They worked with prosecutors to bring appropriate charges. They recovered money and belongings for hundreds of people. The unit also partnered with community organizations to teach fraud prevention. They did presentations at senior centers, immigrant community meetings, and neighborhood associations. They taught people what Sarah had learned from catching Marcus Chen. Documentation, persistence, and collective action could defeat fraud. One Saturday, Sarah was invited to speak at a community fair. After her presentation, a young man approached her. He looked nervous. "Detective Kim, I need to talk to you about something. I did something wrong and I want to fix it before I get caught." Sarah listened as the young man, whose name was Kevin Lee, explained that he had been running a small scam. He had been selling concert tickets online that did not exist. He had taken money from about 20 people over 3 months, totaling around $4,000. "I saw what happened to that delivery driver you caught," Kevin said. "I saw he went to prison. I don't want that to happen to me. I want to pay everyone back and stop doing this." Sarah was surprised but impressed by his honesty. She told Kevin that coming forward did not erase what he did, but it would help. She helped him create a list of everyone he scammed and worked with a prosecutor to arrange a deal. Kevin paid back every dollar he stole, pleaded guilty to fraud charges, and received probation instead of prison. Part of his probation required him to speak at schools about the consequences of fraud. 6 months into running the Consumer Protection Unit, Sarah's work was featured in a local newspaper. The article called her the detective who cares about small cases. It described how her unit had recovered over $200,000 for victims and prosecuted 37 cases of consumer fraud. The article included interviews with victims who had been helped. Robert Johnson, the elderly man who had been targeted by Marcus Chen, was quoted, "Detective Kim taught me that no theft is too small to report. She showed me that someone cares when regular people are taken advantage of." Sarah's mother called after seeing the article. "I'm proud of you," she said. "This is important work. You're helping people like your grandmother." Sarah remembered her grandmother, who had been scammed by a door-to-door salesman when Sarah was a teenager. Her grandmother had paid $800 for water filters that never worked. She was too embarrassed to report it. She died still angry at herself for being stupid enough to fall for a scam. That memory had stayed with Sarah. Maybe it was part of why she cared so much about consumer fraud. People should not have to feel ashamed for being victims of crime. At the end of her first year running the Consumer Protection Unit, Captain Park called Sarah into his office again. "The city council wants to expand your unit," he said. "They're impressed with the results. They want to add 4 more detectives and give you a bigger budget." "That's great news," Sarah said. "There's more. The mayor wants to create a task force on gig economy fraud, delivery services, ride-sharing, freelance platforms, all of it. She wants you to lead it." Sarah thought about Marcus Chen and the missing fries that had started everything. That simple case had revealed a much bigger problem. The gig economy created new opportunities for small-scale fraud that traditional law enforcement was not equipped to handle. "I'll do it," Sarah said. "But I have conditions. We need to work with the companies, not just prosecute individuals. We need to push for better systems and policies, and we need to educate consumers about protecting themselves." "Agreed. Write a proposal and we'll present it to the mayor." Sarah spent a week creating a comprehensive plan for the gig economy task force. She included recommendations for regulation, enforcement, education, and industry cooperation. She proposed working with technology companies to build fraud detection into their platforms from the start. The mayor approved the plan with full funding. Sarah's small consumer protection unit became a model that other cities started copying. On the 1-year anniversary of catching Marcus Chen, Sarah ordered food delivery for dinner. She used Quick Eats, the same company Marcus had worked for. The food arrived complete, sealed with tamper-proof tape, delivered by a friendly driver who took a photo to prove everything was there. Sarah opened the bag and found her burger, drink, and yes, her fries. All of them, hot and crispy and perfect. She ate them slowly, thinking about how far things had come since that frustrating day when her fries went missing. One small act of theft had led to industry reforms, criminal prosecutions, a new police unit, and hundreds of victims getting justice. Sarah had learned something important that year. Big changes often start with small injustices. When someone stands up to fight back against small fraud, it creates ripples that can reform entire systems, all because she refused to just accept that her fries were missing and move on. 2 years had passed since Sarah Kim caught Marcus Chen stealing fries. On a cold Tuesday morning in November, she sat in a conference room at City Hall with representatives from 15 technology companies. They were there to discuss the results of the gig economy fraud prevention initiative that Sarah had been running for the past 18 months. The numbers on the screen told a clear story. Reported incidents of delivery fraud had dropped by 67%. Customer complaints about missing items were down by 72%. 843 victims had recovered money from various fraud cases. 32 individuals had been prosecuted for systematic theft through gig economy platforms. But the number Sarah was most proud of was this: 119 people had come forward voluntarily to confess fraud and make restitution before being caught. They had seen what happened to others who were prosecuted and decided honesty was better than prison. These results show that enforcement works, Sarah told the room. But more importantly, they show that prevention works better. When companies build anti-fraud systems into their platforms from the beginning, fraud becomes much harder to commit. Patricia Wong from Quick Eats nodded. Since implementing Detective Kim's recommendations, our fraud-related losses have decreased by 84%. More significantly, customer trust has increased. People are ordering more because they believe their food will arrive correctly. Representatives from other companies shared similar results. Tamper-proof packaging had become industry standard. Driver tracking systems flagged patterns of complaints automatically. Companies now shared data about problematic drivers to prevent them from moving between platforms. Customer reporting systems made it easy to document problems with photos and timestamps. After the meeting, Patricia approached Sarah. "I wanted you to know something. We promoted someone to a new position called Director of Customer Protection. Her name is Lisa Park. She was one of Marcus Chen's victims. You helped her get compensation, and she was so impressed by your work that she applied to work for us." Sarah remembered Lisa. She was the woman who had been stolen from 9 times by Marcus. "That's wonderful. She'll do a great job. She already is." She's identified 3 potential fraud cases in the past 2 months by looking for patterns in complaint data. She thinks like you do. She sees what others miss, Sarah smiled. This was exactly the kind of change she had hoped for. Victims becoming advocates, people using their experiences to protect others. That afternoon, Sarah returned to her office at the police department. Her consumer protection unit now had 12 detectives, 3 analysts, and an entire floor of the building. The unit had expanded beyond fraud investigation to include community education, policy development, and coordination with regulatory agencies. Her partner, Detective Jennifer Choi, knocked on Sarah's office door. "We've got an interesting case. A woman called saying her daughter's piano teacher has been overcharging for lessons. When she complained, 6 other parents said the same thing happened to them." "How much are we talking about?" Sarah asked. "About $1,500 total across 7 families. The teacher has been adding extra charges to monthly invoices for books and materials that were never provided. Set up meetings with all the families. Let's see if there's a pattern." This was typical of the cases Sarah's unit handled now. Small amounts that added up. Multiple victims who did not realize they were part of a larger fraud. Criminals who thought they were clever enough to stay under the radar. Over the next week, Sarah's team documented the piano teacher case. They found that Maria Santos had been overcharging students for 3 years. She had stolen approximately $40,000 from over 60 families. Most parents paid without questioning the charges because they trusted her as a teacher. Sarah arrested Maria at her home studio. During the interview, Maria broke down crying. "I needed the money," she said. "My husband lost his job. We were going to lose our house. I thought if I just took a little from each family, nobody would notice. I was going to pay it back when things got better." Sarah had heard versions of this story many times. Desperate situations leading to bad decisions. "I understand you were struggling, but you stole from families who trusted you. Some of those families were probably struggling too. I know. I'm sorry. What's going to happen to me? That depends on you. If you cooperate, provide records of what you took, and work out a restitution plan, the prosecutor might offer you a deal. If you fight this, you'll face full prosecution for theft from multiple victims." Maria chose to cooperate. She provided detailed records and agreed to pay back every dollar over 5 years. She pleaded guilty and received probation with community service. Part of her sentence required her to speak about fraud and financial desperation at community workshops. 6 months later, Sarah saw Maria speaking at one of these workshops. She told her story honestly, explaining how financial pressure led her to make criminal choices and how those choices only made everything worse. "I thought I was solving my problems," Maria told the audience, "but I was creating bigger ones. I lost my teaching license. I destroyed relationships with families I cared about. I face years of debt to pay back what I took. If I had just asked for help instead of stealing, everything would have been different." After the workshop, Maria approached Sarah. "Thank you for giving me a chance to make this right. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm trying to earn it." "Keep doing the work," Sarah said. "That's all anyone can ask." Around the same time, Sarah received an email from an unexpected source. Marcus Chen. He was in prison serving his sentence. He had 1 year left before his release. The email was short. "Detective Kim, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I don't blame you, but I wanted you to know that I've been thinking a lot about what I did. I took a class in prison about financial responsibility and ethical behavior. It made me realize how many people I hurt. I counted from memory. I think I stole from at least 500 customers, 500 people who worked hard for their money and trusted that their order would arrive correctly. I broke that trust for $40,000. It wasn't worth it. Not even close. When I get out, I want to work with programs that help people understand the real cost of fraud. Would you be willing to meet with me to discuss that? Sarah stared at the email for a long time. Part of her did not want to respond. Marcus had made her life complicated for months. He had stolen from vulnerable people. He had shown no remorse until he was caught, but another part of her believed in rehabilitation. She had seen Maria Santos turn her life around. She had seen Kevin Lee, the fake ticket seller, become an advocate for fraud prevention. If Marcus genuinely wanted to change, maybe he could help prevent others from making his mistakes. Sarah replied, "I'm willing to meet when you're released, but understand that trust is earned through actions, not words. Show me you're serious about making amends, and we can talk about how you might help educate others." Marcus responded immediately, "Thank you. I won't waste this chance." Sarah did not know if he meant it. Time would tell. But she believed in giving people opportunities to do better, even people who had done harm. That spring, Sarah was invited to speak at a national conference on consumer protection. Law enforcement officials from across the country wanted to learn about her model for investigating small-scale fraud. Several cities were creating their own consumer protection units based on her work. During her presentation, Sarah talked about the Marcus Chen case. "It started with missing fries," she told the audience. $4.50. "Most detectives would have told me to just get a refund and move on. But I learned something important from that case. Small frauds are the foundation of larger fraud patterns. When we ignore small thefts, we send a message that crime below a certain amount does not matter. That creates an environment where fraud thrives." She clicked to the next slide, showing statistics on fraud prevention. But when we investigate small frauds seriously, we send a different message. We say that all theft matters, all victims deserve justice, and criminals cannot hide behind small amounts. After the conference, several detectives approached Sarah with questions about starting similar units in their cities. She spent hours sharing her protocols, training materials, and lessons learned. She wanted this approach to spread because it worked and because people deserved better protection. One detective from Seattle asked, "How do you decide which cases to take? You must get hundreds of complaints." "We look for patterns," Sarah explained. One person complaining about a contractor might be a dispute. 10 people complaining about the same contractor is fraud. We also prioritize cases involving vulnerable victims: elderly people, immigrants, people with language barriers, low-income families. Fraudsters often target these groups because they think nobody will advocate for them. "What's been your biggest success?" Sarah thought about it. "Getting Helen Park's furniture back. She was one of our first cases. Elderly woman scammed by a fake moving company. We recovered her belongings and arrested the scammers. That case taught me this work is not about the dollar amounts. It's about dignity." Helen was embarrassed that she fell for a scam. She thought she was stupid. We showed her she was a victim of criminals, not a foolish person. That shift in perspective matters. On the flight home, Sarah reflected on how her life had changed since that day she ordered fries and they did not arrive. She had been frustrated, then curious, then determined. That determination had led to Marcus Chen's arrest, industry reforms, a new police unit, national recognition, and hundreds of victims receiving justice. But the thing that made Sarah most satisfied was not the big achievements. It was the individual moments. The look on Helen Park's face when she got her furniture back. The thank you card from Robert Johnson saying he felt heard for the first time. The message from Grace Martinez saying she had helped her neighbor document fraud against a dishonest mechanic. These moments reminded Sarah why she became a detective. Not for the famous cases or the promotions or the recognition, for the people who needed someone to care about their problems, no matter how small those problems seemed to others. 3 weeks later, Sarah got a call from the prison. Marcus Chen was being released next month. He wanted to know if she would still meet with him. Sarah agreed. They met at a coffee shop near the prison. Marcus looked different, thinner, older. He sat down across from her and said, Thank you for giving me this chance. Tell me what you want to do, Sarah said. I want to speak to delivery drivers about the consequences of theft. I want to tell my story so others don't make my mistakes. I want to help companies identify fraud patterns. I know I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can prevent others from doing the same thing. Sarah studied his face. He seemed sincere, but she had learned to be careful about trusting people who had proven themselves dishonest. Here's what I propose, Sarah said. You volunteer with a community organization I work with. They teach fraud prevention to vulnerable communities. You speak honestly about what you did and why it was wrong. You do this for 6 months with no publicity and no personal benefit. If you show genuine commitment, then we talk about larger speaking opportunities. Marcus nodded. I'll do it. When can I start? Sarah set up the volunteer work. For 6 months, Marcus showed up every week to speak at workshops. He told his story to groups of elderly people, immigrants, students, and low-income families. He explained how he justified stealing to himself and how that justification fell apart when he saw the real impact on victims. The audiences responded to his honesty. They asked hard questions. Why did you think it was okay? How much did you really need that money? Did you ever think about the people you were stealing from? Marcus answered every question truthfully. I convinced myself it didn't matter because each amount was small. I told myself the companies would cover it. I didn't think about the student who went hungry or the elderly person on a fixed budget. I only thought about myself. That's what makes it fraud. Putting your needs above everyone else's and not caring about the harm you cause. After 6 months, Sarah met with Marcus again. You've done good work. I've heard positive feedback from the organization. You've been consistent and honest. Are you still interested in doing more? Yes. This is the first time in my life I've felt like I'm helping people instead of hurting them. Sarah helped Marcus expand his work. He started speaking at schools about fraud and ethics. He worked with delivery companies to help train drivers on proper conduct. He even testified at a city council hearing about the need for better driver screening and accountability. 1 year after his release, Marcus had spoken to over 3,000 people about fraud prevention. His talks were effective because he did not sugarcoat his crimes. He owned what he did and explained exactly how victims suffered. Sarah attended one of his presentations at a high school. A student asked Marcus, "Do you think you've made up for what you did?" Marcus shook his head. No. I stole from 500 people over 18 months. I've spoken to 3,000 people, but that doesn't give back what I took. I can't make up for it. I can only try to prevent others from making the same mistakes and help people protect themselves from fraud. That's all I can do. After the presentation, Sarah told Marcus, "That was good. You're making a real difference." "Thank you for believing I could change," Marcus said. "Most people wouldn't have given me that chance." "I didn't give you a chance," Sarah corrected. "You earned it through consistent action. That's how trust gets rebuilt." 3 years after catching Marcus Chen, Sarah received an award from the National Association of Consumer Protection Advocates. The award recognized her work creating the consumer protection model that had spread to 47 cities across the country. At the ceremony, Sarah gave a short acceptance speech. "This award isn't just for me. It's for every victim who refused to stay silent. It's for every person who documented their experience and filed a complaint even when they thought nobody would care. It's for my team of detectives who investigate cases other people think are too small to matter. And it's for reformed offenders like Marcus Chen and Maria Santos, who are using their experiences to educate others and prevent fraud." She paused and smiled. "This all started because my fries went missing. $4.50. People thought I was crazy to care that much about fries. But I learned something important. Every crime matters. Every victim deserves justice. And sometimes the smallest injustice reveals the biggest problems. When we take small crimes seriously, we prevent bigger crimes. When we listen to victims others ignore, we create a more just society. When we give offenders chances to make amends, we break cycles of harm." The audience applauded. Sarah looked out at the room full of consumer protection advocates, law enforcement officials, and community organizers. All of them working to protect people from fraud. All of them believing that every victim mattered regardless of the amount stolen. After the ceremony, Sarah went home and did something simple. She ordered food delivery. When the food arrived, complete with all items sealed and correct, she opened the bag and found her fries. Sarah finished her fries and smiled. They tasted like victory, not because she had won a battle over stolen food, but because she had learned something important and shared it with the world. Justice is not about the size of the crime. It's about the principle that everyone deserves to be treated fairly. That principle is worth fighting for. Whether you're missing $40,000 or just an order of fries. Sometimes the smallest battles teach the biggest lessons. And sometimes when the fries go missing, it's worth starting a silent revenge operation that changes everything.